There are about 180,000 federal regulations on the books, costing nearly $2 trillion a year in compliance costs, and it's strangling American businesses and economic growth. So as part of our continuing series, The Mighty Middle Market, we are joined tonight by Ohio Republican Senator, former OMB Director, Rob Portman. Senator Portman, welcome back to the program. You know, let me just ask you, we got a 2.5% GDP report today, so we dodged the recession bullet, at least for now. How do we grow the economy at 5%, which is really what we should have coming out of the bad recession? Right off the top of your head, what should we be doing, sir?
First of all, we needed not only at 5% to grow out of the recession, but we needed at 5% to be able to start creating jobs and getting back to 4 or 5% unemployment. So it is critical that we do a lot more than we have done to create the climate for economic growth. And the three things you and I have talked a lot about, Larry: one, regulatory relief. You just mentioned it. A lot of businesses are not hiring, not making the investment because of concern about regulations. Second, tax reform. Our tax code is both complicated and inefficient, but also uncertain. So businesses, including pass-through entities, small businesses as well as large corporations, are wondering where we're going on taxes. We need to put some tax reforms in place that lower the rate, broaden the base, make the code more efficient, and give companies some more predictability and certainty. And finally, we've got to do something about energy. We have now seen some gas prices go back down and stabilize, but we've got to find ourselves less dependent on foreign oil, using our domestic resources here. We have them. They will create jobs immediately through the exploration and all the products that go into gas and oil and coal and other energy sources in this country. And those three alone would help to deal with some of the structural problems in our economy right now. So, regulatory relief, tax reform, and energy development. All
right, you're co-sponsoring regulatory relief. Just about everybody in the world agrees with you except President Obama, who's out there on the campaign stump. I mean, he's saying, if you listen to Republicans, they want to cut taxes to millionaires, and they want to end regulations on safety and clean water and clean air. You know the drill. It's total class warfare, but he, for some reason, disagrees with you, even on such a straightforward issue as regulatory relief. What's your reaction to that? What's your response to that?
There's no way he could disagree with us, because the legislation that we have proposed, and by the way, it's bipartisan legislation and bicameral, meaning there's someone in the House also pushing it on a bipartisan basis, is really simple. It says to the federal regulators, stop sending all these regulations onto small business all over this country and making it harder for them to create a job. By looking before you put together a regulation, what are the costs and the benefits, and look at the job impact, which they don't have to do now. Second, come up with actually the least burdensome way to meet an objective or a policy set by Congress, which they don't have to do now. In some cases, they have to consider it, but don't have to actually follow the least burdensome alternative. And then be subject to more transparency and actual judicial review as to whether the agencies do the right thing.
But, Senator,
that would avoid a lot of these regulations you see.
That sounds like good government. Okay, I'm all for good government.
It's all simple stuff.
But what about just a flat-out moratorium on regulations right now? Flat out, hold back the EPA, hold back the National Labor Relations Board. Why not? Just send a signal to business that we're on their side for a change.
Well, we should have a moratorium. I'm also on that legislation. I support it. As you know, Republicans have been supporting that. That is not bipartisan at this point. What I'm talking about are common sense things that can be bipartisan, can be enacted immediately, that the president should be able to sign. There's really no reason that this should be something we are talking about in terms of a political debate. I mean, it's common sense. We've got to get the regulators to look at the costs, look at the benefits, look at the jobs, come up with the least burdensome way to do it, and be subject to the kind of review that you would expect them already to be subject to, and to have the transparency and to be able to get the input from the people as to how these regulations are going to impact us. So there's some stuff we can do right now, Larry. We also ought to put a moratorium in place, particularly with regard to some of these EPA regulations, just to have a timeout.
Now you're talking.
And to give businesses a break.
Now you're cooking. Senator Rob Portman of Ohio, we appreciate it very much. Good luck on the legislation. Up next, folks, on Kudlow.